Hey, Alfonso.
Hey,
How you doing?
doing good.
Good. We are, we're back in the podcast room. Gonna do another one of these on this hill.
On this hill.
Yeah, podcast from Church on the Hill. You good? Your life going all right?
Yeah.
Anything special about today?
It is my birthday.
Hey, happy birthday! Yeah.
I was hoping to avoid that, but
No, why would we do that?
No, yeah.
Yeah. So what number is this?
35.
35.
Mid-30s. It's official.
Yeah. Yeah, 30s are, I liked the 30s. 30s were great. You
Was
feel
that a long
like,
time for you?
well, I mean, it was a little while ago. I feel like in the 30s, you're like, well, I guess I'm like a real adult now.
Yeah.
And in your mid 30s, you feel like, I don't know, you don't even want like, is this middle age? What's middle age?
I talked to my mom this morning, and she's like,
Yeah.
you're middle-aged, son.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, okay.
So she doesn't expect you to live long is what I'm hearing from
Well,
this.
she said if I have Castaneda genes, I'll live till my mid-80s. My grandpa was in the background. He's 87, so
Okay, yeah, that's strong.
He's up there.
That's strong. And how's he doing?
He's doing great.
Okay.
He in the background he said, "I'm strong as a horse." So he seems like
That's
he's doing
fun.
fine.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you gonna hang out with your family tonight?
Yeah, we're gonna get together and have peach cobbler, and it's gonna be great.
Is that your choice? You wanted peach cobbler?
I do like peach cobbler.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like cake very much, so it's unless it's a tres leches cake, it's just not worth my time.
Tres leches? Yeah. If you like your cake dipped in milk, then tres leches is the way to go.
It's better than a dry cake. You're like, what do I need the water or some sort of milk with this. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand.
I feel like I better not make fun of tres leches, or people might consider it like a hate crime.
Oh yeah, you hate my culture.
Yeah, exactly. It's so tied to a culture that I probably need a hands off. Yeah. But I'm kind of surprised about the cobbler thing. Like, I feel like if you don't like cake, you usually like pie. But cobbler's
I love pie.
Okay.
If I'm not going to do cake,
You like pie?
I do pie.
Yeah.
But my wife's like, hey, I've got a bunch of this peach. What about a peach cobbler? I was like, yes, 100%. Yeah.
No judgment here. I used to always want brownies. That's what I wanted for my birthday.
Okay.
Just like, Mom, make me some brownies. That was the thing to do. So.
Good gooey brownie goes a long ways.
Yep. This is coming out after Sunday, and on Sunday we've been going through a sermon series on the Book of Psalms. And this last Sunday we talked quite a bit about community, and within that community, the role of friendship and what friendship, the role friendship plays in our discipleship, in our life. And I thought you would be a great person to talk to about this, because I think of you as someone who's really good at being a friend.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I just see you kind of navigate church and community, and it feels, I don't want to use the word effortless, because I'm sure there's always effort in relationships.
Yeah.
But it seems like you have this natural ability to make friends with people, to be a good friend to people, which is a great attribute to have in a pastor. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain about friends.
Yeah, friends have been, I think hopefully everyone has friends and people that you connect with deeply, but I don't know, I've always just been an extroverted person, and that obviously helps with, friends and interactions with people, but
Right.
I always had a large, diverse group of friends, and I really enjoy people, so. Yeah.
You enjoy people. Weird.
I do. Yeah.
People are great. Let me tackle this, because you are an extrovert and I am not. I am more of an introvert. But sometimes introverts get the bad rap
it's true.
of saying like, oh, you don't like people. I love people. I obviously I wouldn't be in ministry or a pastor if I didn't love people. I love people deeply. But I think extroverts, introverts, we just tend to get our energy and be refilled in different places, and I get more refilled in my alone time and my quiet time, which extroverts can too, but extroverts gain energy from being around people. They enjoy that, and I enjoy it as well, but it sort of drains me at the end of that time.
Yeah, so like my wife, Hunter, she's actually an introvert. Yeah, but
She's so friendly.
She's so friendly, and she loves people. She loves interacting with people. I thought she was an extrovert, but the more time we kind of spent together, the more I realized, she's a extroverted introvert. So she really enjoys that interaction with people, but it comes at a cost.
Yes.
And so that's not where she's going to get her tank filled. That's where it gets drained, and then she needs to kind of pull back from that situation and get filled up somewhere else.
I am so glad that she's in my camp, because she's a great, she'd be a great example of a healthy introvert then, because she doesn't turn in on herself. She would then, I assume, need time alone, but she really faces her life outwards and cares for people and meets their needs. That's what I've seen a lot of your wife doing that as a minister and caring for people, like obviously on a Sunday, but also like thinking about their needs in the rest of the week as well. So that's encouraging.
Yeah,
I'm glad she's in my camp, not one of you crazy extroverts. So maybe then it might be easier. I think maybe what we're saying is it could be easier for an extrovert to make friends than an introvert to make friends.
Yeah, I think if we're just talking about the subject of friendship, there has to be a certain boldness for you as a person to put yourself in a situation where people would even interact with you. You know, it's going to be hard to make friends outside without interacting with people.
Yeah.
So there has to be a boldness to put yourself out there, to start a conversation, to ask someone out for coffee, or hey, do you want to go watch this movie or whatever. And so
ask questions of people.
Yeah,
be curious
100%.
about them. Yeah.
Hey, what's your story? That's my favorite question to ask someone. Tell me what's your story, because it's open-ended. You're not telling them exactly what information you want, but there's so much you can glean about the person in the way that they would maybe answer that question.
That's good. You know who else is really good at this? Tim Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been a long-term member of our church. He used to be on staff at our church. Yeah. Now he does Valor Mentoring, and we've talked about him on here before because he does cool stuff in the city. He's a really awesome guy, but yeah, he is. He's really good at making friends and remembering names. Man, I wish I could remember names as well as he could. He's so good at it, and it's because he cares about people.
Yeah.
So on Sunday we talked about kind of our identity, and the modern Western mind tends to be more individualistic and celebrate the individual, celebrate autonomy. If I had to paint a picture of the Western ideal, it would kind of be the cowboy. Yeah. The lone ranger, the guy who can handle things himself. But that's not what we find in Scripture, especially as you look through the Psalms. You find people's identity deeply rooted in their community. Yeah. Did you grow up in was there a struggle between those two things with you? Like, did you find an ideal in Scripture that your family was living, or no? Just curious.
Yeah, so I grew up in a semi-Christian home. And so when I say that, my mom really was kind of the holder of that flag of she takes us to church. Yeah. Sometimes my dad went, sometimes he didn't. Now I would say he's more in the Christian camp. He's a Christian guy, but like in the past when we were growing up, that really wasn't the case. Right. And so I kind of reflecting back on my family life and the kind of the way that we were brought up, it was very much a warm community. We do like after church, we would get together and have a meal. Not just our family, but like my uncles and cousins and everybody. We would always go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and it helped that they had a pool. But it was always something that we were wanting and eager to get together. Yeah. And as you look in Scripture and you look at the Book of Acts and the new church that's getting built at that time, it was very much what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. This
to an extreme.
Yeah, to a pretty heavy extreme. And so it's just more of this communal, like we are doing life together. And so I kind of find looking at my family, we tried to do that as best we can as a family unit, like kind of a broad family unit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that that Christ, in all the wisdom of God, instituted obviously this whole communal system, even of sacrifice that was done publicly. Yeah, like you're walking down the road with your sacrifice. You're coming to a place, everyone's watching you, like, oh, he's bringing a whole young cat, like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
What'd that guy do? You
Yeah.
know, there's a sense that he brought all that, but then, from the Exodus, that Passover meal, the lamb, the way it was done, and then he is the lamb that is slain. He does this at a very highly communal time, right? A public celebration of a deliverance, and then he becomes that meal, and he institutes the Lord's Supper around what is arguably the most communal thing you can do, which is break bread with somebody. That would have been once a year for the Passover, but then the early church said, okay, he told us to do this
as often as you gather.
as often as we gather,
Yeah.
so we're going to gather around a meal as well. And we, every Sunday at Church on the Hill, we take communion together, but we're not in a small living room setting,
Yeah.
tearing apart pieces of bread for one another and sharing exactly the same cup, because, church grows and it becomes like, well, we can't have a meal every Sunday for 1,200, 1,500 people. What does this look like to continue to do this? And that's where I think that piece of friendship comes in and is so valuable, because the church has become a bigger tribe. Or maybe a bigger, almost nation, tribe, family, friendship. Yeah, maybe they're at the tribe level. Like, my tribe is Church on the Hill.
Yeah.
My family is my family. Where are my friends? Where are my deeply connected people that I'm in their living room and they're in my living room and we're breaking those meals together?
And what's unique about friendship specifically, family you don't get to choose, right? I think that's
Right.
pretty easy to understand. We don't get to choose who our parents are, brothers and sisters, cousins, and so on and so forth.
I'm sure my sister wouldn't have chosen me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a twin brother, so we're going to be celebrating our birthday.
That's right.
Today.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
forgot. I mean, I knew you were twins, but it stupidly didn't dawn on me
Right.
hey, you might share a birthday. Yeah, okay.
I mean, we should share a birthday,
You should,
or unless something went really weird. Or maybe one was born at like 11:59, the other one was born at 12:01.
True. Yeah, different day.
That'd be interesting.
But yes, sorry, I sidetracked
No,
you.
it's okay. What was I saying?
We don't choose.
We don't choose our family. So friendship is one of those unique things that you get to choose who you want to spend your time with, who you want to engage in that type of relationship with. Because there's different types of relationships. Ones that are just passing relationships. We're friendly, but we're not necessarily friends to one another.
Yeah.
But who am I choosing to let invest in me? And I'm going to then hopefully choose to invest in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've shared this story lots of times, but I remember the first time I ever met Bruce. I was working in YWAM. I was leading a school. I asked him, who I didn't know at all, to come and teach, because I just heard he was a good teacher. Didn't know, but I needed a contact, and he was in the city. So I'm like, hey, would you come and teach at this thing? And then there was just this click that I was like, oh, I want more time with you. Like, you could be a friend. Like, I'd really like to spend some time with you. And basically started asking him, because he was older than I was, still is older than I am, doing this church thing where I was doing this mission thing. And I went ahead and said, well, how can I serve you? What do you need? Because I know, like, people don't reject those kind of friends.
Yeah.
A friend that says, what can I do for you? is like, oh, I don't want you around. And started doing ministry with him and started, caring about things that he cared about and learning from him. And then that has been one of the most fruitful friendships / mentoring relationships of my entire life by far. But it came from that place of just, there's something about you I'd like to get to know more of. There's something about your relationship with God I'd like to explore. Can I spend some time with you? And I think the very first time we sat down together was over pizza at Paddington's, if I remember right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question. How is your friendships and maybe as you've gone through different stages of life, how has that changed the way that you view friendships, like maybe your capacity for friendships, and like has that number of friends that you've had like dwindled down? Like, how does that play out in like the different stages of life that you've had?
I think you could probably almost go through all those different stages. I tend to, just because it's easy to do, and I think it fits relatively well, look at my life in kind of those 10-year or so marks.
Sure.
And, the high school friends are high school friends. You're thrown in together, like, let's make some friends. I don't want to be alone. And I had a very, very good high school friend, but not a lot of them. And then in my 20s, after I got married at 20, we went into YWAM together, and suddenly it's communal life. And so there were a lot of friends. And it was easier because we had no kids. We were a married couple, no kids. We had
Right.
all these single friends that were our same age, but we had married housing. We had a place that
Sure.
wasn't just like, oh, you've got a bunk bed in a room with 12 other guys. Like we had a place that had a little living room and a bathroom and whatever. And so all of our single friends were kind of attracted to us. Like,
There's a place to go
you
and
guys
hang
are like
out."
the adults, even though we're maybe 1 or 2 years older
Sure.
than them. But like, you guys are married, you're adults. And so it was just a great time. But then you have kids, and this isn't the case for everyone, but sometimes your friendships sort of take a nosedive
Yeah.
because suddenly your life is just focused on these kids, and you try to organize like play dates or times with other young couples, and that's so valuable but hard to do, right? I mean, you're in the midst of that right now too.
Hunter and I have this conversation all the time because our time now is so restricted.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
because I'm trying to be a good dad, so I'm trying to invest in Willow. I'm trying to invest in my wife,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to invest in that relationship. And so those relationships need to take up a good amount of time.
100%,
So then, I'm trying to do all my normal, working pastor, responsibilities as well. And so then I'm left with these not as frequent, not as often, not as consistent times that I have.
Yeah.
And do I want to recharge? Do I want to, take some time for myself? Do I want to reinvest in those
Yeah.
relationships that I talked about?
Yep.
Or kind of what's been happening in my own life is, who do the people that I really want to choose to invest in?
Yeah.
Who am I
Yeah.
going to be running the race with for a long time?
Yeah.
And who maybe is, and this is, I love, my friends from my 20s and in high school, but I'm still, you're just not friends with them as much anymore.
Yeah.
And so how some of those friendships maybe I've outgrown, or they're just not that same reciprocal type of, like we're not running the same race. We're not
Yeah.
going the same direction, and it's not worth investing.
I think my wife felt the pain of that more than I did in our 30s when we had young kids, because she's more outgoing than I am. She's more extroverted than I am. So I don't feel as much pain. As much as I do love people, I don't feel as much pain if I don't get to be around them all the time. But we still, like, there was a little bit of almost loneliness that we went through then. But also, it was part of bonding together as a family as well. I think it's a natural thing that you kind of go through. And you should still fight for those friendships. They're 100% just as valuable then, maybe more valuable than other times in your life. But you might not have as many of them. But then as our kids aged up, we found all these natural relationships because we're taking kids to volleyball together.
Sure.
And now we're friends with all the volleyball moms and dads.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see each other at every game. We're going to see each other at the beginning and end of every practice. We're going to, whatever. So there's these natural connections that start to happen. And then as your kids age out of the house, then you're kind of left again with, I've got this free time. My kids aren't the center of my life anymore, and their friends' parents aren't the natural people to be friends with. So we're at this new place where it's kind of fun. I can make any friend I want to, and really invest in someone's life or just spend this time with them. I was thinking about this as well, that, on top of everything we said on Sunday about this being part of our identity, part of who we are, because it's the way God designed us. It's also who He is, that He is the triune God. There's never been a time in infinite time that He has lived where He hasn't been in a relationship.
Yeah.
He's always been in relationship, and He's always blessed relationship. He didn't just stay the triune God. He spoke created beings into existence. And to be in relationship with them. And He cares so deeply about those relationships that even when they're broken by our sin, He repairs them at great cost to Himself. That is, to be a friend is to be godly. To care for somebody else, to repair, to move towards someone's hurt even, it's a godly move because that's who he is.
But Jason, that's uncomfortable.
That is uncomfortable.
And that's hard.
I'd rather just have friends with no needs.
Yeah. I mean, the type of friends that I feel like I've outgrown are the ones that can't. They can have fun.
Mm-hmm.
We can get together and do something, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
But when I'm having a rough season, when I'm in a rough season,
Mm-hmm.
they're not there, or
Right.
or like
Yeah.
they're not ready to have a hard conversation. They're like,
Yeah.
wait, can we like, dude, you're really harsh in the vibe. Like,
Yeah.
like, can we do something else?
Yeah, they're good time friends.
They're good time friends, but they're not friends to like, hey, let
Yeah.
me pick you up.
So can we hammer out a definition of friendship? We didn't just define friendship
Yeah, no,
on
we
Sunday.
didn't. Yeah.
I don't think. To be honest, this is recorded before Sunday, but
Yeah.
we have Sunday's sermon written. But what is a good, decent definition of a friendship?
Well, I think a couple weeks ago we kind of touched on what makes a good friend a little bit, and there was this balance of truth and love at the same time, which I think Jesus is truth and love at the same time, and he kind of does this great balancing act. And I think in a good friendship there should be this love for that person, and care, the kindness, and all of those type of things that maybe you can maybe define within love. But then there's a truth piece that speaks to encouragement. Like, I'm going to encourage you and like push you on to better things, and hopefully, but also there's a truth that like, hey, I think I see some of your weaknesses a little bit clearer than you do.
Yeah.
And let me point
So
those
there's
things out to you.
permission in friendship.
Yeah.
There's permission to say the truth.
Yes.
Like
yes.
you know me well enough, because a stranger, I don't walk up to a stranger and say, I don't really care for your attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, people do, I guess, sometimes today,
very
and we
direct
call
people,
them Karens or something else. We're
Yeah.
like, man, what's wrong with these people? They're like, how dare you breach that social, boundary? You don't talk to people like that. But a friend, I'm like, hey, I know you well enough, and I care deeply enough about you that I should say, you shouldn't have talked to your wife like that.
Yeah.
That didn't seem cool to me.
Yeah.
She seemed hurt by the interaction. And frankly, if we really are friends, you're going to listen to me and not just walk away from this conversation mad at me because I told you the truth. So,
Yeah. So I think it's those type of friends that, or I guess that's how maybe I would defend real friendship.
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think too, like, it's okay. Like, the reality is you can't be deep friends with everyone. You can't.
Right.
And so within those circles of nation, tribe, family, there is this closeness of friends that we even see in Jesus' life. He had the 12, and he poured out his life. He died for them the way he died for everyone.
Yeah.
So he loved them, but there were 3 that he pulled even closer. And John seemed to just be like this, like, okay. Whether or not Jesus would say it, I think John would say, you're my best friend.
You're my best friend.
Right? Yeah. And there was just this connection.
I'm going to lay on your lap.
Yeah. You're making me uncomfortable, dude.
Don't you got your own seat, man. Like,
Yeah. I hope John wasn't playing chicken.
Yeah.
I think it's just this honest love that he had for them. And I've just had friends like that over the years. There's just been people like, oh, man, I love this guy.
Yeah.
And you can have that. You can have a good friendship outside of Christ. I've had good friends. They were friends. They cared about me and I cared about them. We didn't share Christ in common. But man, there's something so much deeper about someone when you have Christ in common, when we have like, Jesus is the Lord of my life. Then like we don't just have like a love of football in common or a love of, I don't know, some hobby in common.
Yeah.
The core of what we care about, the order that we've put our life in is the same. And so when we see our friend's life out of order, you can say, hey, we agreed this is the order of our life, that Christ was going to come first, that we were going to care for our spouses or for others before ourselves, that we were going to lay down all these things. And we could call one another back to that truth that we've chosen to live. There's just nothing like a Christ friend.
Yeah, and I've even experienced that in a cross-cultural setting. Maybe we don't even speak the same language.
Yeah.
Or have the same culture, but like we have this common unity in Christ.
Yeah.
And there's this affection and love that you have for your brothers and sisters that you really you can't really have a great friendship with, because I mean communication is pretty important to friendship, but there's this immediate like camaraderie around the kingdom, I think is kind of what you were saying.
I think too, we kind of touched on Sunday, but it's worth pointing out that friendships are risky, and that like it sometimes after we've been burned, especially, it can feel easier to not care about people, to not invest in our lives in people, and that only a friend can really disappoint us. Psalms, as it talks about friends, speaks more about disappointing friends than it does about healthy friends, actually, because the Psalms is a place to pour out your heart and sometimes your hurts. That friendship just involves that kind of risk, because only a friend can betray me.
Yeah.
An enemy can't betray me because I never gave him my trust. A friend can betray me because I've given you my trust. And there have been times, I mean, I'm 53 now. I've been in church basically my whole life. I came to faith, real faith in my teen years. And there have been the deepest disappointments I've ever felt are from my Christian friends.
Yeah.
Because I expected the most from them. But I don't feel like that gives us permission to give up on friendship, though.
Yeah, I lived in a house of Christian guys, and it was early 20s, early mid 20s, and we were living together, and I was paying my rent, and then all of a sudden I came home one day, and there was an eviction notice on our door, and I was like looking around at my friends. And Christian friends, we all go to the same church, like it's, some of us are even serving there together pretty faithfully. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, we didn't have the money. I'm like, what? Just like,
where's my money going?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I've been giving you my money, but like what? And so it was one of those situations where it's hard when you have that moment of distrust, the trust broken, and you're like, how do we piece this back together?
Yeah.
And it took time, and it took like hard conversation and forgiveness, and it took both parties kind of trying to work towards something. Yeah. But it was really hard, because now, I mean, that has real life consequences. My credit was like kind of dinged and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so obviously now I have to find a place to live. So it was not fun. But
that's a great example. And you could walk away from that and just go, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make that choice and just say, man, community is not worth it. I got hurt. But then the alternative is, I never get hurt, but I never get known.
Yeah.
I don't have deep friends. I have acquaintances. Acquaintances just can't hurt you as bad because I don't have a very high expectations of them. But I see in Scripture a call to deep relationships, to investment. And that means there are going to be times within the community of God that we're disappointed. More disappointed probably than anywhere else because the expectations are so high.
Yeah.
Because we expect, like, I thought we were a Christian house of friends, not just a house of, like, we didn't just do this on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Like, we were a group of Christian friends together who did this. So the pain is probably more. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, as pastors, I know we've both talked to many people over the years that have said, I remember specifically when Kaiser Campus first started in 2010. For some reason, I don't know why, but we seemed to be a place that a lot of people that had given up on church started to come to. And while that was encouraging to me that they were coming, back to something that God had given us, it was also like, man, do I want to pastor a bunch of people who have been hurt by church? And I don't know how many times someone had walked up to me and said something to the effect of, I'm going to give church one more chance. And I'm like, well, it took me a long time to process that and go, okay, God, what do I do with that? Mm-hmm. On the one hand, I'm really glad that you are doing that. On the other hand, where else are you going to go? Like, what do you mean you're giving God one more chance? Or you're giving even the church one more chance? Is there another bride out there I don't know about? Like, this is it. This is what God has given us. And because they're hurt, like, okay, let's start there. Like, I'm not going to give you a rebuke for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to, like, okay, let's start there. But we better grow out of that immaturity and not stay there where we're constantly on a trial basis. If I lived my marriage on a trial basis,
Dude.
well, I'll see how you behave this week. I'd be miserable,
Yeah.
right? I'd make her miserable, and I would
There's
be
no
miserable.
security there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And also there's a part of it where, like, there's a reason why, the church is talked about like the bride of Christ.
Yeah.
And it's also the church is talked about as the body of Christ.
Yeah.
If he's the head. If I were to take a body part and just, pull it off and just kind of throw it off to the side, and
Luke Dickerson.
and did that happen to his finger? Yeah. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Sorry, Luke. and throw it off to the side, like, it's not going to be very productive by itself. No. It's also not fulfilling what it was created for, to be a part. Yeah. And it has a specific role that only it can play inside of the body. There's no other thing that has been created in such a way to fulfill that specific role.
There's an old pastor story. It's old enough and it's pastor enough that I don't know if it's a true story or if I don't know it's just like a proverb or an illustration. Sure. So I'll share it because it's always stuck in my mind. But a pastor goes to visit a member of his church that hadn't been to church in a long time. And it's wintertime. I think in the story this is like up north in Minnesota or something. And the guy welcomes him into his house, happy to see the pastor. And he says, kind of an old bachelor guy, so he's alone. And he's got a fire going in a fireplace. And they sit down together at the fireplace. And nothing is said. They're just sitting together, which if you've ever spent any time with Minnesotans, that's kind of not that unusual.
Okay.
There's this stoic kind of Norwegian blood in them. And they just are sitting together. And then the pastor takes tongs from this guy's fireplace, reaches into the fire, pulls out a good-sized coal, and just pulls it off to the side. And then he sets the tongs back. And they just sit there together, and they watch that one coal eventually go from red hot to gray to black and dead. And after a while, because that's going to take some time, the member takes the tongs, puts it back in, and goes, "Best sermon you ever preached." And you're like, "All right, bless you. See you on Sunday," and leaves, right? And the illustration is right there in front of you that like we might feel like sometimes like this place is too hot, this place is too whatever, this place is, I'm out, but then
it's uncomfortable. It's
but then we lose something in that, and it might be slow, but something is lost when we leave community, when we leave deep friendships. And I think if I could go anywhere like in this podcast, start to come to a close, it would be I worry deeply as a pastor about being a congregation of a certain size, that people can just come in but not commit to relationships.
Yeah.
That they're just consuming a product. Even if we do everything that we possibly can to not make Sunday a product to be consumed, it is still possible to just come in and like, I received, I got something from this, I didn't really make any connections, and then I leave. And that's like less than half of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. If you're going to church on Sunday, be bold. Ask someone out to lunch afterwards. Ask someone out to coffee. Mm-hmm. Even if you take that question of, "Hey, what's your story?" and ask them like, "Hey, what's your testimony?" would be another way of maybe a Christian way of saying it. But like, get to know somebody in your church. So and then there's that real honest connection with the body. There's the, "Hey, you really know me.
Yeah,
I really know you," and we can have an honest conversation of not a surface level. Yeah, I'm fine. It's good. But no, how is it? How are you really doing? Because we are in a position where people come to us and ask for prayer. And ask for, these are the situations going on in our life. And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to pray for them. I'm happy to help minister to them and carry part of that load with them. but also there's, hundreds of people that can also do that same thing.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones called to minister to the body in that particular way.
Yeah, that's the purpose. We read that the Sunday previous to this. In Ephesians, he gives some teachers, and all of those gifts are given to the body to build up, to mature, so that there would be this unity of faith, and that happens not from just professional ministers, but from each member. And that starts in that place of friendship, of being willing to risk a little bit of myself in someone else's hands. Like, here is my story. It's a risky thing to tell someone your story. Because, okay, now you know something about me.
Yeah.
Now you can call me, to something. But it's so worth it. That was another thing I would just say, and I don't mind giving lots of shout-outs to Bruce, because I love him, and I've seen a lot of good in his life that I have benefited from. But one of the things that I loved when I first met him that I thought was so healthy was his circle of friends. He just had this amazing circle of friends who are mostly elders at the church. And I'd say some of them I already knew because we had some mutual friends, but a lot of them I didn't know yet. And they have become my friends as well, because we're kind of in this together. We're caring for something together. We're doing a project together, the project of the Kingdom of God. And then there's other friends that I have that are maybe outside of Church on the Hill, but they've done other times of life together or things together, but we had this mutual sacrifice in a way together. Like, there's no greater friend than your spouse, because you are choosing, we're doing this together.
Yeah.
We're going to sacrifice for these children together. We're going to care for one another deeply, but you can have that in other places as well. And it's so worthwhile. So
Yeah.
all right, well, man, thanks for coming and being a part of the
my pleasure.
podcast. Yeah, thanks for opening up about friendship. Like I said, I thought you were a great one for this, because I see you as being good at being a friend, and I
Thanks.
that's that's a pretty high compliment, I think, because it's not always easy. So,
It's not.
yeah. Well, guys, come on Sunday. You can't make friends through podcasts that I know of. So why don't you instead show up in person? Let the podcast be the podcast, but let Sunday be something else, and not just be a place where I get something, but also a place where I give something. Connect with other people. Reach out. You be the one. Don't ever walk away going, nobody greeted me. Greet somebody. Make a friend with somebody. Go deeper. It's very, very worth it.
That's good.
All right. Bless you guys. See ya.
See ya.